That's about it. They don't have, the biggest problem they have is all their pension funds. 70% on average have to have government bonds. Government's going broke. All right. You go to war, those bonds are worthless. And their choice is they either go to war or the people are going to pick up pitchforks and come storming the parliaments because their pension funds are gone. I mean, we are mostly self-sufficient. Not 100%, but damn close. But there's another whole layer to this that is not in the press and people don't really seem to grasp yet. Because, as you know, we had offices in Dubai. Everybody and their brothers there.
Yep.
They built a $30 billion AI facility there. Amazon's there, OpenAI, you name it, everybody's in town. When the Swiss, started seizing money for anybody that remotely knew Putin, they shot themselves in the head and the foot at the same time, I think, because the capital started moving. And the two places it went to was Dubai and Singapore. So Iran sent more drones and missiles at Dubai than they did Israel. During COVID, oil went down to $6.50. And I think it even may have gone negative for one day. But all the Gulf states borrowed extensively. They now have national debts like we do. Okay, most people don't realize this. They think the Middle East is flush in cash. Not true. So, shutting down the Straits of Hormuz from Iran's perspective is 3D chess. They also were attacking refineries of the Gulf states. Why?
What if the biggest threat to the global economy isn't the war itself, but the debt hidden behind it? While headlines focus on missiles and oil, Martin Armstrong believes the real danger lies in sovereign debt, fragile pension systems, and growing financial instability. With central banks continuing to favor gold and investors closely watching silver amid geopolitical uncertainty, could a much larger financial shift already be underway? Let's break down Armstrong's warning and what it could mean for investors.
If they shutting down the strait and cutting off oil, they know it's not going to hurt us. Absolutely correct. All right. It's not a ploy against us that way. But if the Gulf states cannot sell oil, they default. If they default, that goes right back to London. So it's much more than people realize.
Oh, hold on though a second. So Iran affecting London, it looks like the United States was forcing Iran's hand to affect London.
Whether the U.S. understood, I don't know. I did a report on this, and I did send it off to the White House and to some other people. I don't think they knew about the debt situation. My experience in dealing with these people is that, I mean, we're even talking about the unelected, neocons and stuff. They just look at what's in front of their nose. They don't connect the dots. And so I'm not really sure it was intentional to impact London financially. But
that was the result? I mean, essentially, that's what happened.
What is interesting is that when I was called in last year, and they said they wanted to give me a briefing on Russia. So I went, I took my assistant with me, and then we get there. and she has to leave the room. They said, no, this is national security. I mean, I got clearance, fine, but so what's going on? Then they asked me to write the peace plan to present to Putin. And then they asked me, use your back channels to get it to him. I said, you want me to do all this? They said, yeah. And I asked, is this sanctioned? They told me yes. Okay, so I sent it off. I got it on Putin's desk, and about 3 weeks later, I got a letter from Trump saying thank you. So I guess it was sanctioned. But all of this, in that, I do have to say that it looks like Trump has done pretty much everything I put in that proposal. And the most controversial part, I said we should leave NATO. Laid out all the reasons, told them who in Europe is going to stab them in the back. And everything I said has panned out. And I've said, I think, on your show and others over the last couple of years that Macron has wanted to conquer Russia to get the 75 trillion in natural resources they still have in the ground. In his mind, that's twice the U.S. national debt. And then Europe will rise like the Roman Empire and rule the world. And U.S. and Canada will become the subservient colonies we should have remained. And I would say this, and people would go, oh, come on, that's a little, far. Well, look up. About a month and a half ago, the head of NATO came out. He didn't use Macron's name, as I have, but he said, if you think you can conquer Russia without the United States, you are dreaming. Europe is teetering on the edge. You can look it up. The GDP growth of Italy is 0.5%. Germany, 0.8%. We're 3 to 4. I mean, Europe is dying on the vine. The socialistic agenda, climate change, everything. I mean, I had a meeting in Berlin, and then I had to fly down to go meet with them in Rome. I couldn't even get a flight. I said, oh, it's just a 2-hour flight, so all the short ones have been canceled. If you didn't go first thing in the morning, that was it. I had to hire a private jet to make the next meeting. I've never had to do that in 40-some years.
Wow.
It's just, this is Europe. I mean, if you look at it, the most brain-dead decisions you possibly could come up with. Put sanctions on Russia. Ukraine knocks out their pipeline, and they still give them money, right? It's devastated their economy, and they act as if they can still take Russia. You had the head of their Air Force saying, we're ready for Russia and we can hand them, tonight. That's about it. They don't have, the biggest problem they have is all their pension funds. 70% on average have to have government bonds. And the government's going broke. All right. You go to war, those bonds are worthless. And their choice is they either go to war or the people are going to pick up pitchforks and come storming the parliaments because their pension funds are gone. Yeah, no, it's the same thing in Ukraine. They don't want peace. If you look at the Minsk agreement, and this was part of what I put into that proposal, I said, Europe negotiated in bad faith. Merkel even, I don't know if she had too many drinks or what, but it even made, I think, Der Spiegel, somebody asked her, why didn't you enforce the Minsk agreement? And she basically said, well, we never intended to. We were only buying time for Ukraine to build an army.
Oh, geez.
And look, as you know, we had also staff in Ukraine. We had people in Kiev and also Donetsk. The two wouldn't even talk to each other. The movie they did on Me, the Forecaster, all the translation was done in Donetsk, all right, for Russian TV. So, I mean, they're Russians. They're not Ukrainian. And Zelensky has outlawed their language, their religion. Would you even want to stay in Ukraine?
No.
I mean,
I saw reports before the war started. I was fed reports, right? And these were independent analysis of the like 15,000 people about were just murdered and slaughtered in that area.
yes, in Odessa,
Yeah.
as soon as 2014,
Yeah.
they were killing
those
Russians.
are real.
Oh yeah, then a lot of them fled to the trade union building and they set it on fire and burned them alive. That's what started the whole separation movement. Ukraine is the motherland of ethnic cleansing. All right, they never had a country. The reason they're neo-Nazis is that they joined Hitler, who promised to give them a country. So their national hero is Bandera, and they began ethnic cleansing. If you weren't Ukrainian, they just killed you.
Jeez.
Jews, Polish, Russians. If you didn't speak Ukrainian, you were dead. That's how they were trying to create a country. All right. I have tapes on my site of Zelensky, and he is a neo-Nazi. All right. And I don't say that lightly. The tapes I have of him on stage before he was president, making jokes about confiscating assets from Jews and Russians. All right. And he married a Christian girl. His children are baptized in Orthodox Christianity. Only when he becomes president, like Soros, he comes out of the closet, oh, I'm Jewish, to cover the fact that how could I be a neo-Nazi? Because I'm Jewish. We kill Jews. Soros did the same thing. Sorry. Confiscated assets admitted from Jews, pretending to be Christian. All right. Same thing. I have friends in Israel, and they basically said he's no Jew. Yeah.
Martin Armstrong argues that today's geopolitical conflicts are deeply connected to the global financial system. He believes Europe's biggest weakness isn't military power, but its massive debt burden and pension funds heavily invested in government bonds. If fiscal pressures continue to grow, confidence in those systems could come under strain. He also points to the Strait of Hormuz as more than an oil route. According to Armstrong, disruptions there could pressure heavily indebted Gulf economies and send financial shockwaves through global markets. Meanwhile, investors continue watching inflation, central bank policies, and geopolitical risks, all factors that influence gold and silver. Gold remains a trusted safe haven asset, while silver continues attracting attention because of its growing industrial demand in solar energy, electronics, and AI-related technologies. Whether you agree with Armstrong or not, his core message is that debt, geopolitics, energy, and financial markets are becoming increasingly interconnected. Understanding those relationships may be just as important as watching daily market prices. And with those risks continuing to build, the bigger question becomes, where could markets move next?
I don't think so, mainly because you do have an awful lot of ethnic just hatred. We had a conference in Athens, and the staff from Kiev refused to fly back the quickest way simply because the plane landed, changing planes in Moscow. Wouldn't even take
that much hatred is what you're saying.
If you brought a bottle of Russian vodka to dinner in Kiev, they would take it and smash it over your head. there's no talking to them. And I've tried. They've been brought up in school, and the propaganda is Russia, Russia, Russia. And I've said, do you realize that Stalin was not Russian? He came from Georgia. I said, the guy, Kaganovich, his right-hand man who stole all the food from Ukraine, was Jewish, born in Kiev, not Russian.
It does seem like everything's always Russia's fault. Everything that happens is Russia's fault.
It's definitely a serious issue. And I'll say, when I was called in to write that peace plan, there's nobody more surprised than me, because you actually asked me to circumvent the State Department. But I was told, we agree with your position. We will not be at war with Russia. And they said it will be China. China they see as a seeking to expand its empire. All right. Russia is not. All the bullshit about Putin. As you know, I was in the middle of all that regime change back then, which is why I think I was asked to write the peace plan. They actually said, very sorry what was done to you, but it gave you more credibility.
It gave you more credibility. Isn't that incredible? Getting your ass kicked, going to prison gives you credibility with people.
Putin knew that I refused to participate in that regime change. And it was to put in $10 billion. They were blackmailing Yeltsin. And at the same time, Yeltsin was, they had got him to take $7 billion from an IMF loan and wire it to Geneva through the Bank of New York. All right. And to some company nobody ever heard of for refurbishing the Kremlin. All right. And as soon as that wire hit, Republic National Bank runs to the government and says, oh, Bank of New York just did a $7 billion money laundering. So now the feds go in on the bank. They then threaten Yeltsin, you're going to step down and appoint their buddy, Barosnovsky, the head of Russia. So at the same time, the old Russian communists filed a motion for impeachment to get rid of Yeltsin. So he's getting it from two sides. That's why he turned to Putin. And that's why they hate Putin so much, because one, he wasn't an oligarch, and two, he wasn't a communist. So he was the only one that stood between both of those parties. And you can also look up Barosnovsky, who had even called me, desperate, trying to get me to put in this money. And I said no. But you can look it up. They're called his begging letters. He wrote letters to Putin apologizing. Please let me come back to Russia. I'll be a good boy. And he then supposedly commits suicide. All right. Very convenient. But his bodyguard even made public statements. He didn't commit suicide. He was killed by MI6. And the other guy, Safra, who run Republic National Bank, I think the CIA took him out. So I was just in the middle of all this firestorm. And so I guess from that perspective, asking me to do something that Putin knows that where I actually stood, I guess did give me more credibility to do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because Rubio was always, neocon, anti-Russia, Cuba, Venezuela, everything else. So I guess it would be taken more seriously from me. And Putin has come out and said what I put in there. And Russia has no intention of taking Europe. And of course, the NATO warmongers say, "Oh, can't trust him, what he says." But Europe has nothing, has no energy, has no goal. There isn't a profit to be made. Okay.
They have the financial hub. They have City of London is what they got.
That's it. All right. And that's, losing territory month by month, basically. If you look at Starmer having to resign, the British pound will most likely fall below par. I mean, it's a disaster.
But do you think the City of London has power over the U.S. dollar and the world economy, though, more than just the British pound, right?
No, not really. I mean, they used to, but a lot of their institutions are now, second tier.
Martin Armstrong's warning is simple. The biggest financial risks may come from the connections between debt, geopolitics, and the global economy, not just the headlines. What do you think? Are gold and silver preparing for a major breakout? Or are investors still underestimating the risks? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this analysis, subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for more updates on gold, silver, and the global economy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.